Good morning, everyone.
So, good evening, everybody. Warm welcome to each and every one of you to this great ideas, great minds get together or conference during Amrutkaal. I think it'll be a great opportunity for all of us to share our initial thoughts on the budget which was announced 2 days back. We're going to have a detailed analysis, not just on the interim budget, but also discussions that we're going to have on M&A. We've got very senior personalities from industry. I guess virtually each and every one of us is a chartered accountant here. But I think people with varied experiences across finance, IT. We've got even a well-known author here, so got good experience all around. With that, can I request Rasmin to start his talk on M&A?
Okay. In the meanwhile, what I'll do is I'll briefly take you through the summary of what exactly is the current deficit situation, the budget situation we have. So, first of all, it was Manoj's idea to put some funny image in the beginning. So the next slide, what we see is about how the budget has been, and it is not our idea. It's basically captured from Economics Time. So everyone may have seen this front page there. So this is basically coming from the recent movie. I don't know how many of you have seen it. Fighter. So some of these information what will be shared will come from these following links. This will be attached to the presentation later. People can just extract this and have some understanding on what happened. Now, this slide just provides you an understanding about what exactly.
I'm saying somehow I don't want to see the slide moving because I'm the only one in the Zoom as of now. Yeah.
So basically, when we talk about 45 lakh crores of investments, revenue and expenditure. We talk about that 45 lakh crores, where it is coming from and where it is getting used. So this is basically, we talk about the 45 lakh crores of revenue receipt. For this current financial year, we have revenue receipts around 26.6 million, 6 lakh crores, and capital receipt of 18.7 lakh crores. Where it is getting spent is coming in the next slide, which calls out that the expenditure on the revenue expenditure is 36.5 lakh crores. 35 lakh crores, and the capital expenditure comes to 13.7 lakh crores. The percentage what we see here is basically where the rupee comes from and where the rupee goes in. So when it comes to where the rupee goes for that 45 lakh crores, we spend around 20% into interest payment on the borrowings we have. Those borrowings are around, you can calculate 75% of our GDP is what we have, our current borrowings, the current status. So 9 lakh crore is what we spend on the interest payment. The rest we can see here, we spend 6% on subsidies. Just do a reverse calculation, you will get the number. Defense is 8%, so good, decent amount.
Yeah.
You can say 9 for the 3.6 lakh crores is what we are spending on defense. There are different sectors, what we can see here, wherein central sector schemes, which comes to 16% and rest, but the major portion goes to interest payment. So when we look forward to have expectation of subsidies, where are we getting? We are getting it from the donation, sorry, from the borrowings we have. And that is what you are seeing. If you see where the money is coming from, sorry, the slide is a bit slow. We still look forward to have borrowings and other liabilities of 28%. So if we are expecting that direct tax rate should go down, you need to understand that we will add more borrowings. So 28% is coming from borrowing. These are nothing, my calculation. These are all from the slide which is shared at comment portal and is available there. 28% is a big money. Definitely that also includes your how government will arrange that. This investment is
This income tax is personal tax, 18%. And the corporate tax is separately mentioned, right?
correct.
And GST is 18%. So that's
Yeah.
also interesting.
Correct.
Together, the entire direct tax is 36%, which is higher than the GST of 28%, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
But they are showing a very high income
Yeah,
from direct taxation compared to corporate tax.
That is interesting, actually.
Oh, that will raise very sharply compared to previous year.
I'll just take you to the next slide. When we talk about future, the revenue calculation, what they have is not increasing majorly. 45 lakh crore is getting to 47 or 47.5 lakh crores is what she's projecting for this current next financial year. And there's one slide which is
But
interesting.
in your slides, your fiscal deficit targets, it's at 4.5%, all of that.
Correct. So that fiscal deficit is expected to go down from 5.8% to 5.1% is what she is saying.
I thought it was 4.5.
No, that will be for financial year 25-26.
Yeah.
4.5. So right now it is 5.9 for this fiscal year ending. Then it will come down to 5.1. And the target is
5.8 is this year, next year target is
5.1.
estimated for 25, 5.1.
Correct.
And
And for 26 is 4.5.
4.5.
So the Whistler is
4.5.
4.423.
So that is what capital receipt is expected to go down in 24-25. They are anticipating lower considering with the revenue receipt.
So this includes disinvestment also.
Correct. The capital will be disinvestment.
Actually, on the disinvestment now, government is saying that we are not going to depend too much on disinvestment.
Yes, finance secretary has even said today that they will not be making distress disinvestment.
That's one, and second, they are saying that they want to see the public sector companies' values created. So ever since Mr. Modi said, public sector, 3-4 months ago, it started going.
Last 1 week has.
Actually, going earlier also, but the place has momentum has picked up much more than what.
They themselves said that 23 lakh crores is the value created this year for the public sector stocks. They are reporting 2004, where the value was 4
It
lakhs.
is today $700 billion valuation only PSU stock, excluding AUM held by LIC.
Yeah.
So if you take all three components, FII, DII and PSU, they are all by and large equal. So the largest stakeholder today is PSU.
They are planning to disinvest something in ONGC.
So that will be small part, but basically they will be looking to sell companies at the proper valuation in future.
Target for next year 30,000 crores. Next year disinvestment
Very less.
very less.
They had planned, but I think they did not went for them.
IDBI is a big one you can expect next year.
And that will be one of the first two.
Yeah.
After the election, IDBI.
Okay.
Work has already been done.
So the major items of investment is here. You can see it on the screen. Ministry of Defense has a decent amount.
Defense is the biggest beneficiary.
Correct. And that's the need of the.
Defense, railway.
Yeah,
Railway is
but
another
based
big-
on this, if you look at it, 6 lakh crores.
Railway is also 6,50,000 crores, so it's very beneficial in the railway.
3 lakh only. I don't know.
This is like coming from the
No, 6 lakhs. 6 lakhs. 6.5.
So none of
It is
these,
6.2 lakhs for fiscal year 25, Ministry of Defense. Yeah, it's 5% increase over fiscal year.
Last
24.
fiscal year.
uh, here I'll just go to the last slide, which is about, she's talking about Viksit
Yeah.
Bharat by 2047, which is 100 years of our independence. Four
Viksit
focus
Bharat.
here. Garib. When we talk about Garib, our definition of Garib is below poverty line. And poverty line calculation is 160 rupees per family per day for a family of 4, which comes to approximately, if for one person you have 1200 rupees, you are above poverty line. That means around 40 rupees per day. So either you call it as 40 rupees for your food is good enough to call you above poverty line. Still, that calculation does not include our other expenditures.
But now government defines EWS, that is at 8 lakh rupees.
Hmm.
You
That's
know
something,
that-
that's something you need to consider. You need a
8 lakhs per annum.
roof to stay and at least decent clothes to wear. If you go that way, you get that 8 lakhs. Otherwise, if you're getting food one time or twice, which is basically the calculation is 40 rupees per day, you are above poverty line.
They call this the Gyan. Garib, Yuva, Annadata, Nari.
Yeah, so those are the 4 focus area we have. So,
Forecast.
yeah. Garib, Mahilai, Yuva, and Andata. We don't see any farmer committing suicide. That's overall what I have. I just hand it over to Rashmin to take it further. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for this.
Thank you.
I'm not able to hear. Can you please unmute?
Am I audible now? People on the Zoom link.
Yes, yes. Now you're audible.
Okay, no, I think I was on mute and I thought this guy has put himself
worries.
on unmute, but I think now,
No.
okay, sorry.
No
We
worries.
just got
Please continue.
started
Please
and
continue. Yeah.
I
Please
hope you're
continue.
able to hear others also.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. One second. I think on the capex, yeah, I think this entire G20 participation and the momentum around that was phenomenal, unprecedented.
Absolutely.
The way we have positioned ourselves in front of the global investors, the major economies, the quad which we are part to, and all of that is. Yeah, but it is obviously a lot of discussion about how we don't become what China is in currently. So,
We can try to be.
yeah, so the only differentiator is that obviously our own consumption pattern is much better than what China was dependent on. So that's what we differentiated. I think you touched upon the Viksit Bharat thing, which is the theme of the budget. So, I mean, trying to get to 7 trillion by 2030 doesn't look, now doesn't look like a step pass, but yeah, certainly exciting number to get to. So, critical updates I'll just talk about. This was vote on budget, so anyways, we're not expecting any substantive amendments. But they've done some kind of gestural amendments in terms of extending the certain tax benefits which are there with the startups to start their business. Specified investments by the sovereign wealth funds and pension funds. All kinds of income are exempt. And that particular exemption has been also extended. And some of the eligible IFS units like aircraft leasing, ship leasing, all of those units. So you got time to start those businesses for one more year, just till March 2025.
So just to supplement, the provision was if you are a sovereign wealth fund or a pension, you could invest in infrastructure business. Now they have defined what is infrastructure business. So broadly, they are saying in transport and logistics, they are talking about water and sanitation, they are talking about energy, they're talking about communication, and they're talking about social and commercial infrastructure. Within that, there are subsectors. So what they're saying is, if you have done investment, you stay invested for 3 years. The income streams in the form of dividend, long-term capital gains, interest is exempt. Now, the investment was to happen by 31st of March 2000, which they are now extended by 2 years. Because they have notified sovereign wealth funds. If you see the notification, there are many sovereign wealth funds who are investing. So this is the benefit which we are talking when it comes to sovereign wealth funds and pension funds. But infrastructure, you can either invest in an AI, which is in turn investing in infrastructure business, or an NBFC, or a domestic company, or a business trust. All that is spelled out. But you need to be invested for 3 years. So normal stream of income, then if you're from a treaty country, you would look at the tax rates on the treaty. But at least 3 years, you have to be invested for. You have to be invested.
What's your cooling period?
So that is different. The tax already is different. This comes to invest.
Invested in by this period into a specified sectors, then whatever income streams would all of that would be
Forever.
That's the push for getting all this sovereign.
Now there are conditions attached. So it should not happen that the sovereign wealth fund is borrowing from the market and investing in it. That is not allowed. It has to be out of net own funds. Now, if you borrow, but you're using it not for India specific, for other businesses, then that is okay. But I think there are conditions attached to that. Pension fund, sovereign wealth fund, very clear-cut transparency. And then you need to apply to the Central Board of Direct Taxes to get yourself notified. The moment you're notified, then you start investing in this, then you will enjoy this. It is illicit. Many others. Many Canadian funds are there. Qatar is sorry. In short, who will compete?
Seeing all these Canadian pension funds, then Temasek and GIC, them can be Gulf countries.
Oh yeah, no, all. But Norwegian funds. Investment with Dikka is also exam. Which one? That fund investment. JSPF. That I don't know. They are giving loans at 0.5% to all mutual funds. Because of a negative. 0.5.
There are the economic reasons for that. The infrastructure is provided by. That's a mutual partnership. It's not just finance. No, the mess was obviously that. I don't think they are calling there is a mess because sometimes the one of so because of so we have the tax rate now. If we see our corporate tax rate actually 25%. It is very competitive to some of the peer, I would say, developing. If we compare ourselves to advanced countries, we are still better than US. We may be marginally more than what UK, Germany, others are. Yeah. But I'm saying if you talk about the major European economies, they would be somewhere in the range of 20 or 23%, whereas we are 25%. But we are certainly better than some of the other evolving countries. And the only thing which they had done was for production push incentives, they had given a benefit of 15% tax rate. But the idea was that those companies had to get started before March 2024. I think during COVID, that period, this is a done.
It's a defense. What is the government's objective? We want revenues to the extent of 1,75,000, including exports of 35,000. Now, how will you achieve that by 2020? Not possible because आपने manufacturing, your indigenization also तो they नहीं बने. So this they should have done it. Main budget पर आ सकते हो. Exactly. Leave it up. It definitely got a miss because it was in the making. Everyone was talking about it. But maybe because the foremost factory tax reform, which made the manufacturing come back again. It goes against your objective of Atmanirbhar. Shit, तो कुछ तो miss हुआ. No, these things can come by for the stock market. The weekend jump from 10 o'clock to 3:30. So I don't know. Very big miss. ये बहुत बड़ा miss. ये एक miss है और defense के लिए. I'm saying defense. The expectation was, nowadays they have got production thing incentives. Textiles के लिए, software. Defense के लिए नहीं ना. I mean, you're talking about indigenization. You're talking about. But the scheme where the 300 crores they are going to export India, they have to export.
EPC you're saying?
Buyback.
No.
No, whenever we export $1 billion, 500, about 300 crores,
Hmm.
India, then the company has to re-export 50%.
It's a duty draw.
No.
Because you have your
I'm not getting the name. So I think this is a big offset. Production link, they have not extended. Even Philippines extended. So how will you reduce your current? You hit the point at first.
CAD.
Substantial, right?
I think this is more procedural, but I think currently your normal tax litigations have become faceless. And I'm sure some of the people in the practice would know better in terms of how it's working. But they also had a plan to extend that faceless scheme for transfer pricing international tax. I think they are extending it.
First point of it has not worked. The number of course is passing adverse order every day against particularly 148.
Everyone's going to read. No, I think
Offset that.
it's production offset.
Yeah, offset is from 300 crores to 200 crores. Only those foreign OEMs which will contracts up to 2,000 crores, you have to call back at least 30% of the contract.
Our clients are just generally saying that we will add his experience, but because of this issue of non-continuity of the tax officer, there has been a mixed bag of experience. So a lot of corporates who are used to getting picked up, they are not getting picked up, and they're surprised that how come we could not get picked up. And the other one is those who thought that their issues are now solved. Again, those issues are getting picked up because of the AI, because it's a standard issue, so they will pick up those issues by default. So yeah, the tax audits. So
The other thing is high value contract. Normally, husband wife joint voting. Right? First, husband को नहीं भेजेंगे, wife को भेजेंगे. You please explain. Made an addition. Not only that, irrespective of giving all details, you have made addition. Then we filed writ and got several models. Rampant. वो बोलते हैं और वो is writing कि 2006 में husband ने टैक्स डिवीजन प्लान किया था वाइफ के नाम पे 50% होगा 2006 में 2018 में भी. Can you imagine? I mean, video conferencing we argued with the बोला मैं तो ऐसा ही भी कोई ऐसा नहीं बिल्कुल नहीं. टैक्स कलेक्शन I mean, they talk about this. Then you have to reconcile what is AIS, right? AIS. Ensure that it is all reconciled with your. Normally, what happens is wife का भी अपनी आपका wife पे चले जाता. You have to reconcile before you but if file as per AIS, the process. But high value transactions will get a never file as. I mean, with the deposit, even about 50,000. What is the so these other companies, our case also that they think that given a favorable outcome, but still they produce the given assessment. Have that's what I was going to I didn't know what. They want me to collection, they. That is what I pay. Java payment, advance like the visa unofficial thing. I have to pay. Plus that refund also comes. Yeah.
PLI has been obviously the talk of the town, and obviously I think this is a subsidy which you are referring to. But I think we have to keep giving this because I know how PLI practically, when the overall math I understood, in at least one of the, so recently all this green hydrogen, you guys must be hearing a lot about green hydrogen. It's a very interesting thing, but the whole of the US and Europe is after green hydrogen. So, and it is the most purest version of renewable energy, and it could be the cheapest go forward. So while you're talking about solar and wind and all of that, but green hydrogen can go at a different level. It is just that first they will start applying green hydrogen more in the industrial context. All the big industries like steel, chemicals, fertilizers, they will start using green hydrogen first. And then they'll see on the test if that's going well, then they'll also start relaying the green hydrogen use even in the general users. So I'm seeing the green hydrogen, each plant you want to set up, it costs like $1.5 billion. And $1.5 billion.
Rashmin, can I add something on this?
Yeah.
With the very most important topic of this.
Yeah.
Green hydrogen, clean energy, low cost energy. And who will benefit? The promoters and shareholders of two of the most richest people in the global list.
We know that.
100, global 100, global 25. And the promoters and the institutional investors, wealth management PMS, and DIIs, and retail shareholders, minority investors. So you have just mentioned the names and the shareholders of all those companies. Are we right? Practical implications. Exactly.
Tata Power is also.
Exactly. This is Amrutkaal, Tatas, and Tatas. Tatas just 2 years back were $120 billion group. Today they are $360 billion. And as per mentioned, by 2028, the growth of companies in India, Tatas can be $1 trillion, even Ambanis and Adanis has to be in one. So basically, they are between $3 trillion, then automatically we are achieving the target of $7 trillion without anything. By default, right? So is it China plus one? Clearly, no. It is India minus China differential. We should talk about mathematics, right? Earlier, it is India minus China. That is the way global economy and global movement of resources is headed. We are seeing bankruptcies in China. Largest real estate funds, larger thing, exchanges restrictions are coming. You can't buy short sale, right? So and so is coming. So this is Amrutkaal. We'll come to ratings of the SMC on a scale of 0 to 10. Everybody will rate and give rationale.
So the point I was trying to make is typically so the biggest consumption of this hydrogen is going to be done by the European countries. When if you see that there is one more thing which they have come out with, which is European carbon tax. It's not very people are familiar with that, but in a way they have clearly disincentivized a lot of exports coming from the countries like India and China and all of that in the name of ESG. So because that rate is prohibitive. Sorry. These are the EU level actually. It is a EU tax. So we as a country will have to push really hard to come out of that, because eventually our imports in their country should not become prohibitively expensive because of this tax. But the point I was trying to say was the green ammonia which will be produced, which is the liquid version of green hydrogen, that is going to be imported by all these countries, and they will use them for theirs. So all of these European countries, US, they are pumping in huge money in Indian companies. So you would have seen a partnership made by uh, Total Energies with Adani, the announcements which you would have heard for Greenco, where GIC and Petronas has invested in Greenco. These are all big amounts, and this is going to actually drive our next wave of production and the way we'll develop as a country. So the point is, in this kind of investment, you need a lot of economies to make India as a comparable place to do this kind of production. So the math is, if you give them a PLI along with the state incentives, it practically makes your 70% of your returns back to you. So investments. So it's only 30% you're putting out of your pocket to get to your capacity. So that's where the entire game of PLI is there. And US has read our game, and they came out with some Inflation Act when they have rolled out huge subsidies, at least on this renewable stuff and all of it. So now we can imagine that countries like US is competing to get. Yeah.
Green energy, yes, which countries, which companies will not know power companies, all will use green energy, but where the equipment, who will supply it? So if you read budget carefully, 3,500 crores has been provided for coal gas. Yes, last year it was 6,500. Correct. And total coal mine idle, which is pending for gasification, is 7 lakh. What is coal gasification? Coal gasification, nothing but converting coal into. That is the technology here. The budget by and large is designed for PSU, particularly their oil companies. And then there is another provision. They have talked about 77,000 crores for rolling stock. Last year this was 37,000 crores. Year before it was 15,000. So they have increased the rolling stocks support to 70. What is rolling stock? It is engines. Need for this metro and other rails. उसका जो इंजन बना था only 3 company benefit Siemens and Adanis is a very small Switzerland company. They also make. Yeah, so these 3 companies will benefit out of it. Apart from this, 4 other PSUs were given massive capital outlay. One is Coal India, second is BPC, that is the reason yesterday BPC had opportunity, ONGC and HPC. So all these oil stocks are up 10%. And they will also be. This is a broad my observation on budget. For charging infrastructure, which is a broad. That also maybe EV सब कुछ आएगा. But basically government also अपना support दे. Capital outlay अगर डाल रहा है government तो company होगा. Company में वो valuation and somebody said that पहले valuation create करेगा. क्या नहीं वैसे? Probably Vedanta will regret that why he did not offer 650. So my overall assessment of the budget is that it is low growth, and secondly, some factors which have probably missed out. That they have given finance to 78 lakh street vendors. Yes. Now what are street vendors? But they are creating indirect employment also. So 78 lakhs employment नहीं create. Multiple employment create. Doctors we don't know. For doctors you think. Doctors है, बच्चे वाले हैं, जो भी है. They have created further employment. So and secondly, women empowering. 70% houses in rural India are giving to women. 33% reservation has been given. So basically, is trying to conceptualize the GDP expansion concept. Is study area for GDP में लाने की चाहिए. And another important factor is tourism. So tourism is the single largest factor which can change the demography of Indian budget. हम लोग बोल रहे हैं आगे से यूं कहाँ से? तो सिंगापुर और दुबई स्टैंड अलोन अगर टूरिज्म पे जिंदा है, तो इंडिया अपना जीडीपी 10% क्यों नहीं बढ़ा? तो टूरिज्म एक ऐसा फैक्टर है, इसी की इस पे एक्चुअली मोदी जी 10 साल से काम। अगर आप देखो स्टैच्यू ऑफ यूनिटी वन थिंग, आप कनेक्टिविटी देखो, आप नॉर्थ ईस्ट में उन्होंने 4-5 एयरपोर्ट बना दिए, 10-15 रेलवे स्टेशन बना दिए, फिर कश्मीर में सब दिल्ली रीजन में जम्मू कश्मीर डायरेक्ट रेल हो गया। तो ऑल जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर क्रिएट हो रहा है, ये होटल इंडस्ट्री के लिए बहुत अच्छा है। होटल इंडस्ट्री यहाँ से जम के चले, क्योंकि यूपी गवर्नमेंट ने भी गोल्डन ट्रायंगल अनाउंस कर दिया, वाराणसी एंड अयोध्या। तो they are expecting 25,000 tax revenue only from Ayodhya alone. So tourism is becoming a major Everybody is requested to rate the FM speech and the policies on a scale of 0 to 10. My rating of budget is 9 out of 10. And this rightly said, one or two we have missed it, but maintaining fiscal consolidation and even that current account deficit is two important things. They have sent a very clear message that they are going to do all of it, and they are doing now, like last 5-6 years they have been saying they are working like imposters. Announce less, perform more. 16 out of finance speakers are giving rating. We take an average also and estimate it to be communicated to the PMO and the finance ministry. Apart from that, yes, I would like to suggest later. Short will come later. There's open house session. Rating, yes. Rating also everybody. And yes. No. Yes. Yeah. Rating and rapid fire. Simple mechanics is that you need to have round clock energy. Power grid allows us energy from anywhere, and it can go to hydrogen.
मनी जैसे फोन आपको टैक्स से दिया सेट करो पड़ेगा फोन लाओ
Me out to the Honda out since I'm talking, I'll talk about editing. I think 9 out of 10. Only one sit on to other. One only is because of this extension of the manufacturing, and I would have given 10. Okay, during July now. After the open house, people have right to like it's like a revised. IFSC, I think everyone go whenever we meet bankers, everyone is about IFSC. I think we need to get some more actual but the idea was to bring a lot of international players in India. things are done for your extra blessing. So this is the broader objective of setting up IFSC. We have enough ecosystem. I would say the starting point of that. That the derivatives were actually for the Indian portfolio, and now we also give
So let them go to Singapore, US, all countries, let them do settlement all over. All the business is done by the Indian IT companies, Indian AI today. India is really acknowledged it.
યુનિવર્સલ હોય અમુક મોડેલમાં યુનિવર્સલ હોય સ્પેશિયલી એનો નહીં આવે.
Yes, I think that sounds interesting. So I think VCC is also interesting. They want all the VCC
ના ના એવું કશું નહીં યાર એ તો ગ્રાહકની મરજીની વાત છે.
So typically,
એ તો ગ્રાહકની મરજીની વાત છે.
if you still see the top three countries of the is Singapore, Mauritius, and US.
મારે 11 આરમાં નહીં મળતું.
They want those.
મારે 11 આરમાં નહીં મળતું અમને જ ના કેવી છે.
Mauritius and Singapore. All of them.
મારે નીચે નોટની દુકાન છે પાટેલ નોટવાળી મારી દુકાન છે પાટેલી નોટવાળી હોસ્પિટલ
That's the VCC structure.
કેપિટલ કોમર્શિયલ ની જ વાત કરે છે.
Is really targeted for that. I think the last one on this family is very interesting thing.
લેફ્ટ સાઈડ માં 20 નંબર આપણે ઓળખા બેઠા હોય
Even nothing in front of some of the like US, UK, in India also, I think that more than 90% of the business are family.
એટલે પહેલામાં પાટેલ
Like
નોટનો ભાવ
now institutionalized.
દુકાન હજુ બી છે.
This concept has found some kind of traction now. This family investment fund. You set up a family office. IFSC is little nuanced in terms of how it is seen. Only from I would say it is anonymous. Companies that so that's why they have given incentives of 10 years for tax in IFSC to earn income as per the units in IFSC. So I think their objective is to invest in foreign countries also through this IFSC. They want to invest outside India. Your family this particular IFSC and then so that's the push.
ભાભીનો મોકલો એની નીચે લખજો ભાભીનો પછી તમને મોકલો એની નીચે લખજો. દોઢેક મહિના બધાની ધ્યાન કરો. નહીં એ ટેમ્પરરી બોટર.
This is interesting and lot of you guys working in wealth management of that, you will see this thing coming up more frequently because we were a lot of understand what are the benefits to this family investment. More limits to invest outside India because to directly invest as individual, you have LRS. If you do through this particular fund, there are a lot of nuances maybe we can do a quick don't check it.
આપણી પાસે સમાચાર આવેલા છે.
Just at the front.
हाँ बोलो 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 તકો મળતી હોય એ જ લેવાની છે તમે સમજો બજાર ખરાબ
Very
નથી
similar.
જોનું
So
આપણે સરસ છે હું 200-500 નિફ્ટીમાં મારું પેટનું પાણી ના લે 1000 નિફ્ટી સુધી ના હાલે. મને એવું કીધું છે એટલે પબ્લિક રોજ છે ચાલ આપણે તો એડવાન્સ ચાલવા લાગીએ ખબર ના આપણે તારા આપણે પ્રોગ્રામ ભેટવાનું હવે ઠોકવાના ડોકાઓ બીજા 4 દાડા અઠવાડિયામાં હા તો આ તો તાજું જ
I'll
આવે
talk about it, right? So
પહેલેથી ખેર તો
interesting fact is
15 દાડા પહેલા કે આપણે તો
8,000 startups.
રાતે કરે તો હવારે લગાવવાનું ચાલુ કરે મને કહેતા જ આવે એટલે તો અત્યારે કીધું કાલ રવિવાર છે મારા પાસે ફૂલ ટાઈમ છે તમારા પાસે ફૂલ ટાઈમ છે આપણે
Now,
તમારો
there are
આવશે
actually
એટલે
two reasons what we understand.
તમે એનું તમારું ટેન્શન તમને મોકલે ભાઈ તમારું શું
Which we
ટેન્શન
understand from
હું એક કાગળ પર લખે કમલેશભાઈ આટલું આટલું તમારા માંથી
not loudly.
આટલું ભાભીમાંથી વેચો આટલું બાબલામાંથી વેચો પણ નહીં વેચવા જેવું લાગશે તો કઈ દેખા નથી
Funds more easily.
તગડો નફો મળે એની માટે
This kind of thing.
સમજી ગયો
And
और
second
हाथ
is
अपना
they
काढ़वा
thought
देना
that if you want to do IPO in US or Singapore, it will be more easier to get an evaluation.
હું પહેલા
But what
જોઉં
has happened
મને
for
યોગ્ય
last
રાખશે
50
એવું
years?
કરીશું
RBI is definitely after those fintechs
એની
that
આવશે
you
આવશે
are
ને આવશે
regulated business.
4 દાડા વહેલું
You need to
એને
actually
કીધું કે
have
અમારે
your
પાંચમી
entire
વખત એનો
ecosystem in
મિસ્ટેક છે
India. So you need to
પાંચમી
have
વખત
your
મેં જોઈ
main
છે
company also in India.
ફોનમાં છે
And the
વખત
investors
ઓળખી
also
તો
realize
આઘોરે
that
નહીં બનતી
the Indian market
મારો
depth is
કાકા
also
ભાઈ
increased and
એટલે
the acceptability for the unicorns is also there.
તમારો બેન
So we see obviously BT and Zomato getting listed and so on.
મારું તો છોડો
Already pipeline, they would have pipeline. So what the reverse flip means, before that, what is flip? So flip is you already have an Indian company, entities into the outside. Now this is reverse that. You get their holding company which are outside India, but operating is in India, and India back to
આપણે પોર્ટફોલિયો અત્યારે વેચવાનો
only the
મને ખબર પડે છે
and you don't have a foreign
ભાઈબંધ તો
we would all
બે બાજુ
where PhonePe did that, where they actually allowed their shareholders to get shares in PhonePe.
તમને કહેવા આવ્યો હા હમણાં એક ભાઈનો મેં બહુ લગો 15 પેટી કમાયો
So imagine these things.
15 લાખ રૂપિયા કમાય કેટલા મહિનામાં ખબર ઓક્ટોબર નવેમ્બર ડિસેમ્બર ને જાન્યુઆરી 4 મહિનામાં ઓક્ટોબર બી નહીં નવેમ્બર ડિસેમ્બર જાન્યુઆરી 3 જ મહિનામાં કામ મોટું એફ એન્ડ ઓન આ ભાર બેટા હું સાંભળું છું સમજ બરોબર કાઢે નીચે વાળો કોઈ નથી આ 4 કરોડ
I'm sure that's another data protection act. I think we saw on having those data centers. I think it's a simple muscle power. I realize you can set a chain of command. I think we have got to that stage where we as a company can say that you invest, it comes with less cost. So better. Certainly. I think we all should acknowledge that we have come into that in that chain of top 6, top 8 conversations. And that's very much poverty levels and all of that, which is not fair because the part is that our wealth concentration is
બારે જા.
Anyways,
હા,
we
અમે
are
છે ને આજે સવારે જવાનું હતું પણ સુરેશભાઈ ને બધા કહે આજે હું અહીંયા આજે આજ ડિઝાઇન મિશન તો સવારે જતા.
I mean, I think we are more technical to talk about this, but
અમે ડાયરેક્ટ જતા રહે
I think what I was hearing to last
સવારે
year was that they want those data to be localized in
એટલે
India.
ત્યાં રોકાના કાલે ત્યાં
India data to be
કાલે જા
outside available.
રાતે હોટલમાં બેન તમને મોકલી દઈશ. મોકલજો હું ટાઈમ કાઢી મને 9, સાડા 9, 10 વાગ્યા સુધી મોકલશો તો ચાલશે. 11 વાગે મોકલશો તો ચાલશે. કોઈ મોડો મોકલજો તો હું સવારે કાલ મોકલે બધું. મારે સવારે
There is
બેસવા
some
જવાનું.
act also.
બોલો ખાસ ફ્રેન્ડ ના મમ્મી
I don't remember the name.
હજાર ઉપર છે વીકતા જ એ ખતરનાક ઓળો તમને મળે રેકોર્ડિંગ સંભળાઈશું બોલ્યો પણ કે મોજ સુધી નથી એક વાર તો બમ્બુ ફીટ કરી દેશે બૂમ પડાવશે 1.5 મહિના માટે પછી કે તેજી ઇલેક્શન ના આ માર્ચ સુધી આ ફેબ્રુઆરી ચાલુ છે ને ફેબ્રુઆરી 15 તે 20 તારીખ સુધી પણ મારે એટલે સુવર ની જેમ માર આ તો લોકો ફરી વળે ને તો ડેડલાઈન ફરી
That's so many things happening in
અને
fintech.
એ વખતે એવું છે આપણે બહાર હોય ને એટલા જ એવા હોય આવા જેડો એટલું આવા દે 40-50% નીચે કોઈ વસ્તુ મળી ગઈ તો દબાઈ જ દે અને 2 મહિના પાછી 40% વધી
These
40% વધવાની ચલાવવાનો તો છે એને મને કીધું આવું છે
2023.
અને એ કે ને મેં જોયું છે મોટા મોટા ધુરંધર નું કામ એવો મેસેજ આપે એને ખબર છે એ તેજી વાળો હું તેજી વાળો એનો મેસેજ આવી જ જાય એનો બોમ્બે વાળો ભાઈ છે પૂછી જોઉં સ્પેશિયલ ફોન કરતો પરમદાર લગ્નમાં નતો તમારો ફોન આવ્યો તો મેં કીધું શીખવા છે એનો ફોન આવ્યો ને તો હું લગ્ન માંથી બહાર જતો રહ્યો મેં કીધું મઈ ગયા લગ્ન એનો ફોન જનરલી કેવું હોય આવો એના ઢોલ નો અવાજ બી સંભળાતો હતો
Some kind of investment and this may not be accept to an is in retail, so so Jana is back by
government will allow
going on, and there's a lot of speculation going on. Time will tell. Ramat has said 75. He was doing this year, and today he's in German. He's trying to get the talent, and it is not easy to get talent. It is not easy. We have some of our colleagues and friends, Geo, who have been ex-CFOs of SBI also. Ultimately, it is what the corporate offers in terms of values and packages and policies. So time will tell competition, let him acquire. So big time for M&A, big time for M&A professionals, right? Big time for great minds. CFT will decide. And today, CFT has become one of the most important judicial bodies. We have seen a media and entertainment company take 2 years. And what is happening? FDI is stuck up. The industry minister is waiting for that over $1 billion. Rivalry spray. Rivalries are very important globally in India also, right? Rivalries are very important. $90 million And they are trying to install the system. They are trying, it's not easy. 30% is mandatory today, 26% is now 9%.
I just, for example, the interest. They are current from 80%. Imagine. And the same thing actually done by the pharmacy who did 29% discount to their plan. So,
this evaluation game. Path to profits. Everybody wants path to profits. Carry on. This is
So I think all of us should know that we as individuals are not making investments in this. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting as to how all the startups will eventually get listed and how would they find their ultimate destination. But yeah, sometimes it's not easy to digest that some of these unicorns which were like star performers, they cannot get. But I think we as professionals need to realize one thing, that we are all somewhere exposed to this startup community. And sense of accountability is what investors expect in terms of whatever contact we have with this kind of startup. Because you see a lot of articles, valuations are done by CAs, due diligence are done by CAs, so many reports are done by CAs.
And this opinion by corporates, ultimately
Audits are done by CAs for the startups. So I think we spend a whole lot in terms of accountability for this, because eventually it's the money from all the startups who are getting money, or somewhere it is private equity, but the money burned somewhere obviously leaves a bad taste for a country or for a global startup.
Money is sweet spot for the company with enhanced evaluation. This is a real life example in Google. It's a real example together, right? They came together. So what happens? Money is very important. Unless you invest, you can't become a global player. You will just remain a bookstore online. It happened because the bookstore online people say money gone, money gone. And today everybody really envies the business models and the wealth creation model. So money gone is essential. Unless you invest, you can't get the money on zero. That investors waited and they sell their wealth stocks and they recover the cost. But you want to become a global scale player, you have to earn money. It is not burning money, it is investment. Every match, every dollar, every rupee, every yuan, every yen, every pound, every lira, every paisa, the average currency now we are talking about petrol, gold, everything investment creates it all is a question of ethics, excellence, integrity of the promoter, making mistakes and become better. Each professional, whether any global CEO, has learned only from mistakes. Otherwise, you can't create value. Everything people have learned from mistakes. And then you grow. So burn money, invest money, A bond doesn't mean we talking about professional language. And have high, you can have high ROI after 20 years, or you can have after 6 months. That short-term speculative mentality, short-term, you want return in the same day for intraday players, right? Some companies you need minimum 10 years to create value. This is what we talked about Berkshire Hathway. Clearly, he says, what does the owner and the principal shareholder of Berkshire Hathway says? 10 years. You will assume you won't see the price of stock for 10 years. So that means the company is investing here, and when you burn money, so-called burning money, then the return comes. Berkshire Hathway is where the biggest money came from. Insurance. Insurance. You write risk. Right risk. And one ship will sink, but long term. There's pricing power. So that is where wealth is created over long term. So burning money investment is very important. This is what your Rankngs is also doing. Today, you have pricing power.
કેટલા શેર પડ્યા છે શું પડ્યું આપણને ખબર પડે ને ધોની ને પહેલા જગ બોલ્યો कि वो नहीं था ना आया अरे वो बैठा नरू का लड़का है वो नरेश नाम है उसका अच्छा अभी बोलते हैं
Yes. Rashmi mentioned about burning money. I elaborated in detail.
But we don't know at what point of time will at what point of time.
The person who invests money, he knows ultimately it is a great mind behind it. It can be investment, it can be expenditure, it may be pure speculation. In marketing warfare, all rise and jack crowd. Clearly, marketing warfare is there. Defensive player, whether this goes on lever, right? And number 2, number 3, number 4, guerrilla warfare. That's how the number 4 can become number 3 and number 2. The first one is defensive strategy. That's what Apple is doing worldwide. Defensive strategy. Microsoft is doing worldwide defensive strategy. Hindustan Lever is doing defensive strategy. Nestle is doing defensive strategy. It's Patanjali's which are doing guerrilla warfare. And they are one at the rank. Today, the total global turnover of Patanjali is how much? Can you guess?
So I just want to tell one thing, so startups community, I don't think most of us will be knowing that. We are one of the top 3 startup communities.
That's what Prime Minister has been putting on his LinkedIn post. Prime Minister has been putting on his
ये पण चाल આવું છે એરિયા છે આયા છે ને આયા છે ઇધર હા એ કે પછી નથી હા હા તમે સેફટી માં નહીં રાખ્યું યાર મગજમારી નહીં એજ વાળે લગાવો ના ના લગાવવાનું હા એ તમે ફ્લિપ કીધું પણ સારું ફ્લિપ ફાવતું નહીં તો કેમ કહું દુકાન તો ત્યાં એ લોકો પરમિશન આપે ના આપે ના આપે તમારે લઈ લેવાના પૈસા તમારા પોર્ટફોલિયો બનાવ્યો મારા બનાવ્યો તમે મેં મારામાં એનો અલગ portfolio તમારા પોર્ટફોલિયો ની વેલ્યુ કેટલી થઈ અત્યારે અત્યારે મેં કેમ કીધું ખબર છે તમને જો એનો ફોન આવ્યો તો લગ્નમાં હું હતો 1 તારીખે આવ્યો હતો બપોર 4 વાગે લગ્ન ચાલુ હતા જાન ચાલુ હતા બોલ વાગતા હતા
Startup investor, it starts with a great idea. Then there is incubation. Then there is stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Everybody brings ideas. And sometimes ideas get so mixed up, then the business models and financial models fail. And sometimes they get supplemented. The great idea becomes a greater idea and could become the greatest idea like Amazon and Facebook.
Planning, we have a lady in the room.
Yes. Please sit here.
Please talk about
There cannot be a board without a lady.
capital markets. I think you said you are.
Yes, come.
So what is the pulse of capital market?
Yes,
Fund
come.
IPO?
Move here. Please.
You can sit here so that
Yes,
you
yes.
are visible.
Come.
You can sit here, you are visible. Come.
It's like a board. Diversity is very important, right? Yeah, we'll hear the lady first. Yes. No, say whatever you want.
So I think we're just generally
The
chatting.
finance minister is the lady and she has outlined the vision, which you have read in detail.
So she is visible.
In terms of the rating,
Great.
there's a good emphasis on capex, infrastructure projects. So, yeah, and no major changes in terms of taxes or increasing the taxes.
So very happy with the finance minister of India. Bharat,
Not
that's it. That's one point.
You were expecting standard deduction increase, but that.
Were you?
No.
Okay. What were you expecting? Was that
People expect
minus 1, 10 minus 1?
just better.
Okay. Good. Fair. It's fair. I think 9 is very good.
Yeah,
For the
housing,
finance minister of India
Sorry.
and Bharat. With
I want to understand from her because she mentioned capital markets. What is the traction you're seeing on capital markets, IPOs?
These are anything for IPOs.
But they're all mid-size. I didn't see any big ticket IPOs.
Most of them are SME IPOs. So that leads to
No, not in the budget. I'm saying generally, what is your observation on the traction coming from companies for IPOs? Because they'll typically come to you for pre-DRHP stage and all of that. So,
yeah, I think that is a traction right now. There are companies presently also keep getting the request for proposal. So terms of when a company is planning for an IPO or this, it is the traction is good.
Acha, Rashmin, the last slide and the most important, then we'll have the slides of Nipun Mehta. Now, I would like to add, then I would like others to supplement. The first company you mentioned, Dings, that is it. And there is another media and entertainment company, a Japanese player, which wants a majority stake that needs to be added. Now I'll talk about number one. We have been doing regular communication with the CEO of this company at length, CFO of this company, and also with the Maker 4 top management team, decision makers number 1, number 2, number 3. Negotiations are going on. Negotiations, valuation is going on. So far, there is no press release. Speculation is being coming through websites like MC, right? Money Control. All masalas is coming from there. There is no press release.
Yeah.
So Disney said 2 months due diligence. Maker 4 wants to do it faster. And games are going on to get depressed valuation. This is marketing. So you get the best valuation deals, right? Including rival companies. How you bring down the valuations temporarily. It happened in Bharti, it happened in Idea. Ultimately, Bharti went up. Correct. So that is happening. So far, there is no press release or neither any exchange notification, either in the parent company of Network 18, controlling so-called majority stake, and neither in any of the companies mentioned. Should there be an exchange filing? That is very important. Investors need to know in which investors, DII, FII, PMS, including government, LIC and GIC have a large stake. They need to know. Today, they get information only through slanted articles in print media and digital websites. No exchange filing. Should that be in the interest of transparency, this thing. And the valuation, deal value, we will come to know when announcement done.
What you're saying is different.
Right.
This is what they are doing. This is actually what TV18 and Network 18 is doing. They are consolidating some of their news channel business along with the digital content on news and all of that, which is the internal merger which they are doing.
Proposed. Earlier, they had also proposed a merger of TV18, Network 18, then Hathway. They had proposed 2 years ago, which was recalled because there were SEBI issues on divestment. They were about 75% in Hathway, which was divested. No, the ratios have changed. That means proposals which are in public domain don't really matter. You can change it overnight and the valuation collapsed by over 60% on the cancellation of the deal. So one doesn't know what will be the valuation and which will collapse because here it takes 1 year, 2 years, 2.5 years for merger. Approvals of MCAs, yes, Competition Commission, your shareholders, editors, NCLT. Yes. Yes. Now, yes, when it comes to GD, please come here. Please come here. This is very important. We are going to contribute because FDI is at stake. And the industry minister is waiting for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
This merger of G and Sony is directly connecting with Japan and India relationship, which was sold at the time of Ranbaxy deal. Because Ranbaxy backfired and then Prime Minister has to intervene and get that issue resolved. Now this time, second time again, it has happened after 2 years when this, mutually they have decided to go to NCLT. It's not a forced deal. The agreement was signed, mutually they decided for a merger, filed and their approval in NCLT, and suddenly one fine morning, Sony says that no, we are withdrawing. Did they give any notice to G that we are cancelling? Any merger cancellation requires advance notice.
No, but there was a time limit that was there beyond which they could have withdrawn in any case. So
No,
they
they had
should have
right.
withdrawn.
It was
They
a
should have-
binding agreement. It
There
was a binding agreement.
They should have given notice of
21st
termination.
December. It
That
was
is
a
the
binding
reason. That is
agreement.
the reason. Sony's G's application has been re-admitted by NCLT and 3 weeks time has been given to Sony. and they have asked for a show cause notice. Why you have not given a termination notice? What you want to say on the deal?
They also go to Singapore and they're.
I was there personally at the
Singapore
NCLT
is
final
hold
hearing.
us. Unless NCLT decides, Singapore will not take cognizance of it. So that is international arbitration will not come into play unless Indian NCLT will deal with it. So it's a privy of Indian NCLT because Indian NCLT's approval was taken for the merger. So they are the authority, they will deal with this.
Exactly.
They are the
It's a
authority, they
judicial
will deal-
authority.
judicial authority, they will deal with it.
These are expert, experienced judges.
Now,
They
another issue where they have said, actually they have not given in writing anywhere, only newspaper and media continuously said that they want to remove Puneet Goenka. Puneet Goenka and his father have 4% stake. All we are here chartered accountants. Now, supposing Sony takes over this company and have 70% or even 51% stake, can't they remove Puneet Goenka later on? Easily. They can get the special resolution passed. Institutions are with them. Yet they have decided to call off the deal without seeing the ramification. As he rightly said, there must be some purpose. There are some vested interest acting behind it. Because institutions on record have confirmed that the valuation of this company is nothing below 550 rupees per share.
And here specifically, what is the promoter stake in Infosys? What is Mr. Narayan Murthy's stake in Infosys? What is Mohandas Pai's stake in Infosys? What is promoter stake in HDFC Bank? What is promoter stake in ICICI Bank? What is promoter stake in Axis Bank? It's very, very clear. One has to see entrepreneur. He starts with 100% stake. He gets an incubator. Its stakes reduces to 70%, 60%, 50%. Then you become a global company, right? If you create wealth, you increase your stake from market. Otherwise, you become zero and you start another one. It is happening there. So you see the promoter stake in each of these companies. Very, very clear. A pioneer with 30 years of track record. Debt-free company. And NCLT, who has made the application? Sony has made the application. Based on that, the honorable judges have decided. Sony has made the application. It is binding. Right? They have made the application. Why did they make the application? It's a binding agreement. Today in Disney, we mentioned it's a non-binding agreement. As of today, for due diligence. Due diligence was done by Sony. They were not sleeping. Due diligence was done by Sony. They have made a formal application. And at the final hearing of NCLT in Cuff for it, I was present for 3 hours. Very, very close view. Very, very close view. Hearing each and every side. BSE made an application. NSE made an application. Officially. And the advocates of everybody, Zee and BSE and NSE and all the banks which have filed, Axis, etc., including in frivolous matters of group companies which have no locus standi. They were all there. 3 hours, the judges heard very clearly. And the advocate, it's a team of advocates. How much Zee has spent on merger? Over 300 crores?
Yes.
So fat fees paid to the finest lawyers in the country. Finest lawyers. I was seeing one person having an iPad costing over 1 lakh. 20 of them were having it. And Janak Dwarkadas, right? No, he finds difficulty because of age in seeing the iPad. Printed notes. And his topmost lawyer was sitting next to him. iPad and dictating, and he was reading. He was reading a printout. Generation, it is okay. The sharp minds, great minds are very important. And what happened? Final order. It could have come in 7 days. It came after 20 days. You see the NCLT order is very, very clear. Final order. Very, very clear. Each and every issue by all this so-called creditors. Creditors have passed by over 99%.
Absolutely.
In spite of that, they did. Ultimately, they had their own agenda to extract money for some of the loans they are given to group companies which have no locus standi. Zee is totally debt-free, cash-rich. Cash-rich and investing in new media also. Broadcasting also, digital also, right? We have the very valuable thing, and main is market share. What is the market share? And market share has increased last quarter and before that. Quarter to quarter is increasing. This is FDI. So finest views are coming, different perspectives. Now we can move over to the next presentation by Nipun, a few slides. Lots of things are happening. This is really finest brains. All perspectives are coming, and the people out here, they are the finest brains in the world, and took a look at the reality, facts. You mentioned about the finance minister 2047. What she has talked about is the facts, research, Gyan. Isn't it written in the finance minister's speech? Huh? Right, Rashman?
Yeah.
She has talked about Gyan, research based. What are the facts? Facts. It takes a lot of pains going to NCLT along with a very, very large shareholder. We went together to find out the facts, and it was communicated to both the companies and rivals. We are going clearly and shared actual things, which is everybody can't go. Today you go to NCLT corporate in the room, you don't even know which room is it. It takes time, which floor, then you go inside and there's a crowd.
No, sir, we do a lot of mergers, and I know NCLT Mumbai is, I will still tell you, one of the finest NCLT in India in terms of the functioning part of it.
Fantastic, finest NCLT, and see the NCLT order. Each and every word. It's very reason you appeal, it was shot down. You appeal in Supreme Court, you go appeal in international courts. It is binding. There is no choice. You have to respect the regulator and the courts of the country. It's a court. And this was happened earlier. It was High Court decision. You remember Pfizer and Wyeth merger, Sandoz merger, Novartis mergers. So it was all Hindustan Lever, Tomco. High Courts had authority. It was government wanted to speed up the judicial process on corporate affairs to attract FDI, right? So that's why NCLTs were formed for fast track decision making. And fast track ultimately became slow track because of date by date, tariq by tariq. It was happening. And ultimately,
a lot of pressure they also have.
They have a lot of pressure, and they are the finest judges. The judges of this NCLT Mumbai, which did a hearing of this Japanese company with a local company with promoters with 30 years experience. Detailed reasoning order, finest, highest quality, and they are not corruptible. Highest integrity, that is very important. These NCLT judges which are passed of highest integrity, highest, which is very, very important. Right? So great ideas, great minds. Ready?
So
few more
this
slides.
is more of a very few number of
Just
slides.
one second.
Photo for that, maybe cover slide, you want to just take a photo.
So very few slides, broadly fairly generalized presentation is something that I've made. I think what's more important is to discuss some of those points the way we've discussed. If we go, what are the backdrop for all of these? The current budget, the interim budget. It was, of course, vote on account, so almost nothing was expected. But I think what was what are the background for the budget to be created? The finance minister saw that the tax collection was very healthy. They in fact overshot whatever was projected, and that's the reason why we have a revised estimate as far as revenue collections are concerned. Also revised estimates of fiscal deficit from 5.9 to 5.8. I think business sentiment and earnings were positive. That's something that the ministry would have taken note of. Something like a PLI is, my sense is something that can, it doesn't need a budget necessarily to make that announcement. A lot of the PLI announcements have come after the budget as well. So my sense is when we're talking about defense, that's something that can come again even without the budget. Balance sheets, bank balance sheets are extremely healthy. I think inflation was under control, and the ministry needed to show that debt market could have a positive impact. I think what a lot of times gets missed out in on the impact of the budget is not just the indirect impact on the debt market, but also on the currency market. A lot has been spoken about the positive impact that the budget had on the debt market the 10-year yields fell while the budget was being announced. Clearly an indication to Reserve Bank that probably interest rates probably need to be cut now or on their way. One needs to start looking at the fact that inflation is reasonably under control. Government is not going to borrow too much. Net borrowing that was announced was about 11 lakh crores. Gross borrowing was about 14 lakh crores. So that is more or less under control. So it had a very positive impact on the debt markets. But I think what got also missed out was on the same day, rupee also jumped by intraday, at least when the budget was going on, it was up by about 13 or 14 paisa. It ended up by about 7 paisa by the end of the day. And which was also one of the larger jumps that was there. And this was irrespective of how the dollar moved or dollar index moved. It was purely on the basis of what expectation the bond market had or the currency market had on the extent of inflows that might come about as an impact of the budget. So I think the currency market impact was huge. And obviously, a lot of that has indirect impact on what's the extent of deficit that we are going to have, impact on imports, exports, the extent of belief that there could be a lot of FDI flows, FII flows that could come into the country, probably ignoring the fact that the moment Fed starts cutting interest rates, there could be a reverse flow as well. A lot of the flows could move out of emerging markets depending on what's the extent of cut that is there, and money could flow onto the US, which still remains a very highly rated economy. So I think the currency market, debt market impact is something that's very important. We are the end of the day the fastest growing economy in the world, and though the overall contribution to the economic growth is limited, but I think fastest growing economy. And that's something which Minister would have kept in mind. And of course, the most important thing was the Lok Sabha elections were around the corner. I think that was something that all of us thought would have a major impact as far as the budget is concerned. But mere fact that it was a non-populist budget itself probably had a positive impact on equity markets, bond markets, irrespective of the fact that the equity markets ended down by just about 70-75 points on that day. But I think the sentiment that got created was extremely positive. Backdrop again, as far as global indicators was concerned, was beside of course geopolitical issues that all of us know about. More important was the very sharp China slowdown that we are seeing, and the fact that India's contribution is growing significantly. That's something that's making a big difference on attracting FDI flows as well, and that's what would have kept the finance minister would have kept at the back of the mind. And of course, we are seeing a lot of money printing that's happened in US, a lot of money printing that has happened in Europe, in Eurozone. That's the reason it's having an impact on the currency there as well on the one side. On the other side, you're moving from you've actually moved from a low interest regime about 3-4 years back in the whole of Eurozone onto a relatively high interest rate regime. Now, think of a situation where people are actually being told to spend a lot, and then they have to get into a psychology of saying that please don't spend because inflation is very high. So earlier they were told was don't save, just go ahead and spend. And now they're being told, please save and don't spend as much. So I think that's had a major impact as far as the Eurozone is concerned. Nevertheless, I think again, as far as the backdrop is concerned, what we had to remember, it was a election year. Okay, so this is on the budget itself. I think despite the election year, what we have seen is a fair amount of fiscal deficit, fiscal consolidation. What was expected was a fair amount of infrastructure spending. The growth that was anticipated was there would probably be about an 18 to 20% hike in infrastructure spending that was there. What we saw is 11.11%. One of the reasons for that high expectation was that in the previous year, which is from FY23 to 24, there was a 33% hike that was there on infrastructure. So
Capital.
On capex. So when last year was closer to 10 lakh crores, that was a huge jump that was there. While this time we saw, so that's why the expectation was that we might have probably a.
States have spent only 50% of their budget for capital expenditure so far this year. So next year they'll ask the states to spend more, especially BJP ruled states. Yesterday Mumbai Corporation budget was released. So they increased the allocation for capital expenditure by 10,000 crores. So wherever they are ruling now, so they'll ask the states to spend more, apart from center.
A very important point, the largest budget in any municipal body in India. And if you convert to purchasing power parity, maybe among the highest in the world also.
No, they have the highest cash balance in the world among all the this thing.
Liquidity.
Yeah.
Because of increasing property taxes, increasing stamp duty, because of the big boost in infrastructure spending and housing real estate. Money comes from stamp duty. Concessions are given in the COVID period and they have increased, right?
So that's the biggest contributor as far as revenue is concerned, as far as BMC is concerned. But even as far as the state government is concerned, in fact. Nevertheless, I think what was expected was there needed to be some steps to induce private sector capex. We've seen a lot of government capex happening, but in infrastructure spending that's happening, but the private sector capex hasn't really grown to the extent of what was anticipated over the last 3 or 4 years. We've not seen any major projects being announced. Credit growth, it's had an indirect impact. Credit growth is really not happening to the extent it. So when you look at bank balance sheets, the growth that's happening is more coming out of retail lending rather than corporate lending that is there. And that's the reason RBI is coming down heavily, saying that need to be careful about risk management, stuff like that. So I think and the other factor that needed to be kept in mind while preparing the budget was to boost rural consumption. That is again something that we really haven't seen. So when you look at results of FMCG companies, margins are under pressure, volumes are not going up. The only way in which they are increasing revenues are by
Size.
Actually premiumization of products. So you have probably higher priced products where there is limited price sensitivity that is there. The rich are probably going to still buy irrespective of what the pricing is, but the poor will, but the price sensitive segment of the market is really not picking up. So we've seen, despite government spending in rural areas, we haven't seen that pick up as far as FMCG spending or rural spending is concerned. To a limited extent, it is happening as far as, let's say, electronics is concerned. Mobiles are getting sold. Two-wheelers to a limited extent, again, getting sold. But the traction that should have come because of good monsoon, because of government spending, because of Manrega, all of that is still not showing up as far as rural spending is concerned. So that was the backdrop with which we have seen the budget. The key takeaways now that we see is that one would look at it as a balanced budget without any freebies. I think a lot was expected that there would be subsidies that would be created. Election year, you have, as they say, revenues to be distributed. Probably announce measures whereby a lot of the electioneering becomes easy. But you really haven't seen that kind of populism or populist budget that was there. I think the consolidation is something that all of us spoke about, 5.9 being revised to 5.8. That itself, I mean, you go back actually to several budgets and you'll typically see finance budgets taking approvals for increase in deficits. A lot of them, you go historically, a lot of them, typically the 5.9 would have been extended and said, I need a 6 or 6.1%. This is actually reducing the deficit, clearly coming out of the fact that and also the fact that there has been almost negligible disinvestment that has happened. Despite that, you're seeing deficit coming down, clearly coming out of the tax collections that were there. So that's something that is extremely positive. We've already spoken about these revised estimates of 5.8, 5.1, 4.5 going on to FY26. And of course, we spoke about the capex growth, which was for FY24 over 23, it was 33%. But it's about 11.1%.
That's from the budget estimate, 11.1. From the revised estimate is higher, I think. 11.1 is on the budget estimate of financial year 24.
No, 11. Yeah, you're correct. You're right. You're right.
The revised estimate is less, so the actual percentage based on the revised estimate is, I think, is the higher.
It's coming to marginally higher. You're right that. So yeah, these are based on budgeted estimates. So I think these were the key takeaways, positives. Of course, when you talk about AmritKaal and when you talk about Viksit Bharat, I think that's something that I mean, I've got a slide on what one should actually expect in the July budget. That's probably looking at it more futuristically. This is all analysis of existing budget. So yeah, of course, focus on youth, poor, women, farmers, higher infrastructure spend. I think not much has been discussed or spoken about these 3 rail corridors that are there. When we're talking about the kind of logistics transformation that can happen, when we're talking about corridor for it was energy, cement, and minerals. And minerals, all 3 creating. So you're actually ensuring that there's traffic debottlenecking that's happening. We've also seen, which was very positive to hear, is that Ashwini Vaishnav, minister, actually talking about saying that we are wanting to reach a situation where there's no waiting list as far as trains are concerned. Which means what? You want to I mean, clear the debottlenecking, the traffic that is there, increase the number of trains, increase speed of the trains when you're talking about transferring or changing 40,000 bogies from regular to Vande Bharat trains. I think that entire railway run-up that we've seen, railway stock run-up that we've seen across, whether it is wagons or railway infrastructure, railway electrification, solarization, all of that is something which is being driven by a lot of this transformation that is happening as far as railways are concerned. So that 3 rail corridors was important. I think airports, when we're talking of within 10 years, increase in this airports increasing from 74 to 149, I think that itself is positive. We are talking of now 200 airports to be coming up very soon over the next few years. So I think that's what is transforming India. Green energy housing, green energy harnessing, what was important again. So what one of the reasons for mentioning these points is the fact that each of these is likely to have a significant impact on various industries and a lot of companies, a lot of stocks in terms of higher order flow, depending on their execution, profit, the extent of profitability, increased margins, visibility of order flow for the next 5 years and thereabouts. So when you're talking of green energy harnessing, we would have seen a lot of windmills that are there, wind farms that are there on the sea when you go abroad. Yes. In India, there's very limited, and the kind of wind speed that is there on the sea itself creates a huge amount of energy, something that we've really been missing out. So when you go to a lot of states, you actually see a lot of windmills wherever there is a good wind speed that is there. But something that's been missed out is that green energy over the sea. And that's where probably it's not just solar energy, but also wind energy that will make a huge amount of.
We have allotted some specific amount for that sea-based wind energy, no?
Yes.
In the budget.
But
Yes.
we have solar, which is so cheap for us. So maybe that's not in the priority list.
What is that called?
Offshore.
Offshore, yeah,
Offshore wind.
Offshore wind, yeah.
It's very lucrative.
Green energy harnessing, don't you think developers and all will start thinking of eco-industrial parks and all? Because they are talking about bio, everything is bio.
Biofuels.
So currently, most of the investment that has come about is to get tax breaks.
Correct.
Incrementally, I see only 2 or 3 categories of big investments going into a lot of this green harnessing, whether it is solar or wind. One is obviously the state spending and state subsidies that the government gives. Second is obviously the lot of large power companies that are there. So you've actually seen Tata Power announcing a lot of investment into all of these power companies, NTPC, Tata Power, a lot of the private sector unlisted companies, Renew Power, tons of them actually, also large industrial families actually announcing hydrogen is one part of it, but also solarization and windmills. That's something which will probably go beyond tax breaks onto the kind of savings that might be there and the kind of value that they could generate. So I think very positive. One can think deeper into this kind of an investment on who's likely to benefit. I think tourist centers we spoke about it, but it has actually a huge amount of ripple effect that gets created. If you actually go to, let's say, Ayodhya as an example, and I'm sure many of you must have seen that Jeffrey's report on tourism, which spoke about comparison between that level. Muft mein bijli up to 300 units, plus the surplus that can get sold to electricity boards. But I think the most important was the detailed roadmap for Viksit Bharat. I think that's one important announcement that one can expect, and the roadmap to it in July. Of course, the budget also clearly showed the extent of confidence that the minister had that, yeah, we are going to come and we're going to come with the majority, and we'll come out with a bigger, more important budget next time. So I think that Viksit Bharat impact was, or announcement is likely to be big. This, again, slide we've gone through, so I won't go through it all over again. But I think this is my last slide and probably most important slide on what to expect. And I would think that budget will have a lot of adjectives that people will talk about. Whether it could be path-breaking, it could be visionary, it could look at roadmap for the next 5, 10, 15 years of how India is likely to be progressing when we're talking of Viksit Bharat. It should be futuristic. Till now, we've actually seen a lot of budgets in the past where the minister ends up also explaining why they couldn't implement a lot of projects. What we are seeing as a difference, and I typically actually like the full form of GDP that the minister spoke about, which was governance, development, and performance. When you're actually transforming the definition of GDP and how the government is wanting to execute a lot of the programs and projects that they're talking about, I think that's where the actual drive of budget taking the country forward economically and increasing GDP growth is something that gets reflected. So my sense is there should be a higher disinvestment target that should come about now that a lot of the PSUs have much better valuations. That's something that I would like to see in the next in the budget that could come about. Probably that shows seriousness of the government to actually not necessarily run businesses, but or hold on to only critical businesses and not every business that is there. Again, encouraging private sector capex. Partly, this budget is done by saying that interest rates should come down, because of which probably private sector will want to get into capex. Probably because of which their borrowing cost could be lower, and that could encourage a lot of the private sector companies to go in for capex a little more than what has actually come about. But one of the reasons so all of us would have different reasons why we would have given an 8 or a 9 for the budget, depending on which segment each of us is working on. So you had another reason to give 9. One of the reasons that I had to give 9 was there was very limited visibility of creating rural spend that was there. I mean, that's been a bugbear. That's been one point which has actually held back the economy. We could have seen far higher GDP growth coming about, far higher tax collection that could have come about if rural spending had happened. Rural consumption to that extent is not happening, and that's where I would like the finance minister to actually come out with strong points as far as the budget is concerned. I think about it, I'm sure you guys can add a lot of points which you would like to see on.
Our time is over. Can I share just one line before we finally close? Life is short. 8, 8.5, 9 for a shortest speech in the last decade. So does it warrant so high numbers, or you wait for the main budget where let her make a longer speech and get more marks? Rating and numbers are very important. That's it. That's it. Now the final honors. And thank you very much. It's really wonderful to have the finest minds. A couple of years ago in the budget, we had 15 of the topmost industry expert. Mr. Ashish Chauhan was there, right? He says he will join for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. He joined for over an hour. He gave the budget. It is on YouTube. And the finest people from CII, people from US, from Australia were there. Today, ThinkTank multidisciplinary platform. Last month, we had the director from Citibank, vice president of World Bank. He came to India for a couple of days, for a week in Hyderabad, high-tech city, and couple of days he spent on Bombay. He gave the finest presentation on India growth story from the US perspective, final. And from the New York chapter. We had a special January meeting. We had the finance professional, ex-chief operating officer of UBS, ex-CFO of CLA SA, person who has worked with Aditya Birla, ABN AMRO. He came for a few days. Before coming from Australia, he says, I'm coming, I want to present on ThinkTank. ThinkTank, Vivek Patra, India growth story. It is on record on YouTube. Finance presentations, over 300 presentations since COVID period only. Since the last 4 decades it started, right? It's from last 4 decades. So the story will go on. What's the main purpose? India growth story. So thank you, everybody. Each of the participants, each of the experts, each of the speakers,